Hello and welcome to Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai, working from home. This is the only show of its kind in Indian television dedicated to startups, technology, innovation, disruption, entrepreneurship. If it falls under the ambit of the new economy, it's here every weekday at 6 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, like all the stakeholders that we get on this show, Team Startup Central thrives on constructive feedback. So keep writing into us. Tell us how we can improve the show, how we should be doing things differently, what we should never have on the show, what we should have on the show. Please write into us. Our email address right on top, suc@etnow.tv. I'm also on Twitter. You can reach out to me directly. Right, the first guest that we have on Startup Central today, a unicorn and a chief executive officer of a unicorn who had to take over 3 weeks before COVID-19 and the lockdown. That's right, Amrish Rao took over as the CEO of Pine Labs, the unicorn and a fintech major in early March before the Prime Minister had announced a lockdown. What does the lockdown mean for this fintech, which also of course has overseas operations? Remember, Pine Labs has also pioneering the POS, which is a point of sale for merchants, traders. In fact, every biggie is now targeting Pine Labs' traditional customer base of SMEs, of merchants, of traders. Here's an edited excerpt of my conversation with Amrisha.
We feel very lucky for the space that we are in. We've stayed in a very simple part of the business, which says if a consumer wants to make payments, he's going to use the Pine Labs services. And based on that, we today process about $30 billion of volumes every year. So quite happy in terms of the space that we are in.
So what have the last 3-4 months been like for Pine Labs? Are you a COVID winner?
You know, I wish I could say that I'm a COVID winner, right? But I think there are many moving parts which actually come together. So what we have clearly seen is that a lot of offline stores are still shut. So when it comes to a Bangalore, a Bombay, a Chennai, we still have stores being shut. Footfalls are not coming back to the small stores. However, what has been really good for us is the fact that the consumers who have been coming to the stores, they are showing very high % of digital payment transactions. So what we have seen is the transaction value being almost about 30-35% higher than usual. Plus what we have seen is the percentage of digital payment transaction has gone almost to about 25% in the stores in which the consumer is coming to. However, in the balance, when I look at the month of June, I would say we were like 20% lower than the Jan-Feb number. July is a little bit more tighter. So July is looking like 25% lower than Jan-Feb. But the way I'm looking at it is once we are done with this pandemic, consumers would have clearly shifted towards digital payments. People want to stay away from cash. And at that point of time, we are going to come out as a resounding winner. So that's on the transaction side. We also are India's biggest installment payments provider when it comes to credit cards. So when a consumer can go to a Samsung, LG or an Apple store and buy using his or her card and convert those into 6, 9, 12 months installment payment product, that is being done on Pine Labs. Now there we are seeing a 25% growth over the numbers in Jan and Feb. So clearly we have come out much better on the installment payment side.
Now, Amrish, you know what's you understand fintech, you understand payments. You founded Citrus, which was then taken over by PayU. And what's really fascinating is that you became in charge of Pine Labs during the lockdown, right? During the month of May. It must have been a real test of your leadership and your entire experience.
I have to say it's been very, very interesting. So the first 2-3 months, luckily being in the payments and fintech space for many years, I took understand the business, speak to everybody, really try and figure out what the levers within the organization were. And I think that is really the good part. I think the last 1.5 months is getting back to execution. we have a tough job, right? In a way, we have the responsibility to bring the Indian economy back, and you've got to find a way to goad the team to go back into the field to bring the small trader back into the economy. And it's a very important role that we play. Now that has been very tough, because on one side you've got to be very careful about the employees and the health of the employees, but at the end of the day we've got a responsibility to bring the Indian economy back, and pushing your teams to go out and work with the small businesses to get transactions going. So yes, absolutely, it's been very, very interesting, and especially in the last 1.5 to 2 months time, I found it very exciting speaking to almost 1,000 people who hit the field on a daily basis.
Okay, and was it a big test of leadership? Can I ask you, on this show we like to ask about entrepreneurship and leadership. So you took over at such an interesting time. What would you say were your 3 biggest lessons?
I have to say that it was difficult, and I'll tell you what the difficult part is. Right, you're building relationships, and how do you build relationships on a Zoom call? I'm chatting with you right now, but it's never going to be very easy for me to communicate my thoughts in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. How do you do that with a large company or a large business when you are new? The kind of relationships that you make in a meeting room or at the coffee counters is completely different than the relationships that you build on a video conference. So I think that has been very, very tough. And I guess the only way you can do it is spend a lot of time listening, trying to understand what the teams are telling you in terms of what's happening on the business. So I've tried to work through that. So that's one part. The tough part, and I have to tell you, it's been very tough, is getting the business to go back into the field. You've got to be very careful, and that I have found it very, very difficult, trying to balance between being aggressive at the same time being protective about every team member who hits into the field. That balance is something which I have had to work through, and I must say I found it very difficult to do that.
Okay, so that has been the challenge, and but I also want to ask you that soon after you took over, there were these reports, and let me just address the elephant in the room. Is Pine Labs looking at Wirecard at all or not?
Look, I'm going to be very straight on this answer. No, we are not interested in Wirecard at this point of time. Look, we've got businesses in Malaysia. We do about 25, 30,000 merchants in Malaysia. We have a business in Singapore. We continue to grow in those markets. We just made an investment in a very interesting fintech in Singapore and Malaysia. However, when it comes to Wirecard, I don't think so there is any truth in that. I guess we get linked to it because we are one of the most aggressive and forward-looking payments provider all across Southeast Asia. But I would love to say that this is a categoric no on this topic as of now.
Okay. Now, I remember this headline when my lab became a unicorn.
Sorry, I just
to
want to add
enter
one piece. So you go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that in India, for example, businesses, we've taken over a lot of businesses which were associated with a Wirecard or some other businesses which have struggled in recent times. We are still the first port of call whenever a merchant requires any services, especially in the offline space, and now also in the online area. So yes, we have got more business coming our way. We just signed up Zara as an example in the Indian market, and that's been good for us.
Okay, so business has been growing and you're getting more businesses, whether it's from the MSMEs or the SMEs or the multinationals. That's what you're basically trying to tell me, right?
That's right. That's right.
Now, what's also very fascinating is that the digital highways in India are perhaps far, far more advanced than the physical highways. What's also fascinating is that during the lockdown, you've had some of the world's largest corporations announce big plans when it comes to Indian FinTech. Of course, you have the $20 billion plus fundraise by RelGeo, but you've also had the likes of, for example, Amazon Pay saying it's going to go into insurance. WhatsApp is talking about taking UPI overseas. There's been a lot of action, and now you're going to have OCN, which is being seen as the game changer when it comes to micro lending. So clearly, a lot of action. Is Pine Labs also at a position where it maybe wants to pivot to a new role, or are you going to continue doing what you're doing?
No, we will clearly continue to play to our strengths. See, one of the things which has happened is because of the demonetization, then comes GST, and now with the impact around COVID, what we are getting to see is it's not just that payments are getting digitized, but the entire commerce at a small merchant is getting digitized. So when you look at the e-way bills, and I'm talking pre-COVID, but when you look at the e-way bills, when you look at the successes of players like Khata Book, when you look at what is happening in terms of digital billing at a merchant location, clearly what the merchants are telling us is that if you can help us become a lot more efficient, if you can help us bring footfall back into my stores, and if you can help me run my business in a profitable manner, I'm ready to go towards digitization. The way Pine Labs is thinking about it is we want to go beyond payments and we want to go into commerce. And what that really means is how do we go from being a payments player to a business apps player? So just very recently, what we've done is we've launched a Android Play Store where any merchant using the Pine Labs terminal can go download a billing app, a HR app, a inventory app, and it can also vary by the segment. So we've got a grocer focused app, a restaurant focused app. So effectively, we've created an app store where people can go consume business services, bring it onto their terminal, and that one terminal effectively acts as all levels of digitization for a small merchant. So that's literally, area number two. Area number three is you and I have seen that a HDFC Bank and an ICICI Bank has done a lot of work for a retail consumer, but there's very little in terms of digital apps that they have created for small merchants. We believe that the next wave is going to be in terms of creating banking services for small businesses. And we want to work very closely with partner banks. We partner closely with HDFC, ICICI, Axis, SBI. We want to partner with them so that we can deliver banking services to the small merchant right out of their terminal. So we've got lots of plans basically coming through in this area. We are now about 110 120 million dollars revenue business. We expect to grow 30-35% every year.
Okay, so $120 million revenue being clocked to grow at 30-35%. Can I ask you, are you profitable?
Oh yes, of course, yes we are. So we are a healthy, profitable business. Almost getting close to like $20 million. So no, we are a profitable business. It's a very sound business model that we work on. As we go further down onto the commerce side, we want to deliver value, and merchants do see the value that we deliver. We are not in the game of doing transactions just for the sake of driving the numbers. We think there is value which is required behind that. I'm going to take this opportunity and put my point in. I think one of the areas which can really improve digitization in India is if this whole MDR policy goes to a completely another level. I think the fact that UPI has done so well, QR has done so well in India, but what I believe is QR and UPI in India will move towards digital terminals, and that's going to require investment. And we will have to look at the MDR policy when it comes to QR and UPI, which can help accelerate that digitization.
In fact, that has now been escalated, if I'm not mistaken, by the NPCI all the way to the Prime Minister's office. You know, I think the folks and the stakeholders in fintech have been talking about this for almost a year, and a government which is so committed to digital India, digitization, talking about tomorrow's technology. How out of sync is when we talk about MDR? You know, there's always a case where, you know, you keep giving and you keep wanting more. Is it really an obstacle?
Look, I have to tell you this, that the whole story around MDR is actually misunderstood. Around the world, there is not a single payments provider who would ever say that MDR should go to zero. As you start to peel the onions, you start to realize MDR is very, very important to drive digitization. And I'm really happy that when you look at what NPCI is talking about, when you look at what Niti Aayog is trying to do, they're trying to work very closely with fintechs and find business models by which fintechs will promote digitization. So I sit in the camp that that MDR and support for fintechs when it comes to driving payment transactions, the small corners of the country, that will happen. So I'm very, very positive about what is going to come through in terms of monetary support to drive digitization in the small corners of the country.
Okay, now, you know, at the beginning of the year and the pre-lockdown, what we also saw was a investment by MasterCard into Pine Labs. I've got to ask you this question. How relevant is a Visa, a MasterCard, and American Express in today's day and age, and with what's happening in the digital world?
Look, MasterCard, Visa, NPCI play a very, very important role because you have to understand, you have to think about, and I'm not trying to tell you this is what they are, but you got to think of them as the platform which connects different issuers of cards and acquirers of cards. They are the ones where technology all comes together to drive payment systems. I think they play a very, very important role in the growth of payment systems. Having said that, our partnership with MasterCard is a partnership which is associated to driving digitization in India. I read somewhere recently that MasterCard has committed huge amounts of money for the Indian market because they believe, as far as growth in digital payments is concerned, India is the next destination. But separately, our partnership with MasterCard is also to take the products from Pine Labs into the Southeast Asian markets and into global markets. When we as an Indian company want to go global, I think these are really good platforms for us to partner with to go and take these services outside of our country. Now, as we speak, we are partnering with MasterCard for markets like Thailand and Malaysia and others, where our technologies could be taken there. And we like that, right? This is exactly the kind of partnership that we would want. I have to jump in here and say, at the same time, you will get to hear we are launching some amazing strategic projects in August with NPCI and with Visa for the Indian market. So while we have investment from MasterCard, that doesn't stop us from doing a lot of strategic work with Visa and NPCI also.